In these ancient ruins lies a dark, secret connection to the Antichrist that I will uncover in a moment. But first, Tim Cohen reveals eye-opening details about the British royal family.
Guess what? He's been the #1 globalist on the planet since his investiture in July of '69. Bar none, he has been the most powerful human being in the world the entire time behind the scenes. Everybody internationally takes him so seriously that they bow to him, practically. And I'm going to circle back to that. So his lineage to begin. His mother, when she was coronated queen, was coronated queen of thy people, Israel, quote unquote. Her lineage atop it, her official lineage published in London, which is very detailed, and it's offered through Prophecy House. I'm not just saying this. The chart is available with the book for those who want to get it. Her lineage shows Queen of thy people, Israel, the royal house of King David. They explicitly claim to sit upon the throne of David. The British monarchy does. And that's been taken seriously enough in Israel for it to be announced on national television that Prince Charles is a descendant of King David. That happened before the first edition of the book was published in 1998. That could not happen unless there were rabbis in Israel behind the scenes saying, okay, who can we look at who's got a lineage we think we can verify who might be a descendant of King David, since our temple genealogies, the genealogical records were destroyed with the Second Temple. What are we going to be able to come up with now? And that is what they came up with.
And okay, what's amazing to me is that you said they announced that twice in Israel?
At least twice, yeah, before 1998.
Okay, and they've never done that with anyone else, correct?
Not to my knowledge. I haven't heard of that being done with anybody else ever, not even his sons.
Okay, so repeat again. They announced that he was
a descendant of King David.
Okay.
Why would they do that? And then on top of that, from his lineage,
which actually would then make Israel trust him more to be their Messiah.
You would think so. He claims to be a descendant also of Muhammad through the Hashemite lineage, which is the line of descent ostensibly from Muhammad, like Jordan's King Hussein, like Iraq's Saddam Hussein before he was killed. Yeah, Prince Charles is of that same lineage. And behind the scenes, he converted to Islam under a guardian of Islam, one of the most powerful Muslims in the world. He received an honorary doctorate in Islamic studies from the university there in Cairo, Egypt, the most powerful seat of Islamic learning in the whole world. So Prince Charles is the most popular Westerner from anywhere in the world to the Muslims of the Middle East, and has been this whole time. And that was true. I mentioned that also. That was true even at the time I wrote the first edition of the Antichrist and a Cup of Tea. He has no peer among Westerners so far as the Muslims of the world are concerned. And Prince Charles descends from virtually every royal house in the history of the world, post-flood. He also descends from the ancient Roman emperors, the ancient Assyrian kings, the ancient Babylonian kings, the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. There's almost not a lineage of any, there is no lineage of any significance that any Christian would ever point to from which he does not descend. And by the way, there was a Crusader title called King of Jerusalem. The Crusaders, when they captured Jerusalem from the Muslims, the Crusader who was in charge of Jerusalem was titled King of Jerusalem. That's the Habsburg lineage today, the Habsburg dynasty. Prince Charles descends from that. And guess who the title belongs to today, if not the Habsburgs? If they were to give it to anybody else, it's actually to Prince Charles. He's of that lineage. And when he's in control of this territory in Jerusalem and so forth in the not too distant future, he is King of Jerusalem per that title, that Crusader title.
Okay, Tim, explain in there's a scripture you said in Genesis, I read in your materials about the tribe of Dan and how that would relate to Prince Charles.
Okay, I'll tell you about that and something that I didn't mention in this interview that just happened with regard to Prince Charles before he became king, before his mother died. So in Genesis, Jacob was blessing his children. And the statements that he made were, among other things, prophecies concerning their line that would come after them. Of the tribe of Dan, he said, Dan is a serpent by the way, who strikes the horse's heels so that its rider goes backward. I have or falls backward. I have waited for your salvation, Lord. That's what Jacob said to Dan. Okay. So the word translated as serpent there is the same as the word used in Genesis 3 for the devil, which translates also as red dragon. That is something we know factually from Revelation 12, where that serpent is referred to as the red dragon and as Satan, right? Directly, explicitly. So Dan is a red dragon, by the way, who strikes the horse's heel. Now we know of Genesis 3, verse 15, that there would be conflict between two seeds, conflict between the woman's seed, meaning Eve's seed, and the serpent's seed, meaning the red dragon's or the devil's seed, right? So that the devil's seed would strike the woman's seed's heels, right? His heel. That's what it's typically translated as, but the meaning of the Hebrew actually is his protuberant, the things that stick out from the body. So it could compass the hands, the feet, and the head, all the places Christ was crucified, and where the coronet was placed on his head. So the serpent would strike, or his seed would strike the woman's seed's heel, or his protuberance, the crucifixion, and in turn, the woman's seed would crush the head of the serpent's seed, right? Okay, so now we come to this prophecy on Dan. Dan is a red dragon, by the way, who strikes the horse's heels so that its rider goes backward. I have waited for your salvation, Lord, right? The word salvation there is Yeshua. I have waited for your Yeshua, Lord. So Dan is a serpent who strikes the horse's heel. The rider goes backward. I've waited for your Yeshua, Lord, right? So there are two versions of Prince Charles' achievement shown in all editions of the Antichrist in Captivity. So the first edition also, the official and the unofficial. On the official one, the unicorn is bound, and that there's a chain that's called a restrainer in heraldry. That's actually what it's called. The chain restrains the unicorn by being bound to the compartment below it, and below that unicorn is the red dragon of Wales in the compartment, not touching it. So on the official version, the red dragon is in that compartment, not touching it. It's encircled by a gold compartment. Above that compartment, resting on it, are the hooves of that unicorn, which is not rearing back, and it's chained to the base of that compartment. That's the official arms. The little horn of the eyes of man is restrained, and the red dragon is not touching the compartment below it, okay? The unofficial version is really interesting because the red dragon suddenly touches the compartment. The unicorn rears back.
Just like that prophecy in Genesis.
The chain is loosed. The restrainer is loosed. 2 Thessalonians 2, when the Antichrist is revealed. The unicorn takes on instead of a smooth, almost pleasant demeanor, like the unicorn on the official arms, it takes on a very demonic, deathly look. The unicorn does as it rears back. Okay? All those beasts on Prince Charles' arms form a corporate beast, and it's got its own helm called the sovereign helm, which is the corporate helm, the corporate head of the overall heraldic achievement, a combination of those beasts as though it were a single entity in the occultism of heraldry, okay? So each of those beasts also individually represents Prince Charles himself directly. And I explain how that is from the symbolism, the emblems used in the Antichrist and Captivity. All editions explain that. So when this unicorn goes back, it's like Prince Charles going back, but it's also signifying the devil has possessed him. So this pertains to the midpoint of the tribulation week. This is portraying the future, in other words. These beasts in heraldry are not just to identify a combatant, it's to tell their future when they're very occult like this, okay? So from the beginning, they knew that he would be king, which is why they put the sovereign helm on his coat of arms as Prince of Wales. It's very unusual. Even his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, when she was princess, had her own coat of arms that did not have the sovereign helm. That was added when they knew that she was going to be queen, okay, to give us the coat of arms that everyone has seen associated with the United Kingdom and with Queen Elizabeth II until now, okay? Prince Charles, now King Charles III, had that helm on his heraldic achievement from the beginning.
So that was their intent. That was their intent. Yeah.
They always knew it, right? And the same thing on that unofficial version where he's rearing back. They always knew at some point he was going to be possessed by the devil and the chain was going to be loosed. Okay. This ties into the prophecy about Dan. You see, the British monarchy claims to be descended from King David, as I pointed out. In reality, they're actually descended from the tribe of Dan. And because of that, through Teotefi or Tephatephania, on that lineage of the queens, they claim that the prophet Jeremiah made his way to the British Isles with some Israelites, Danites, and that one of them is in the lineage of the British monarchy. So they're Danites, okay? And why that's significant that they actually are Danites, two reasons. One is it was the tribe of Dan that led ancient Israel into idolatry, which resulted in the schism between Judea and Israel, the civil war that divided the kingdom, so that we got Judea and Israel. That's all because of the tribe of Dan. And as a result of that, when we get to the 144,000 in the New Testament in Revelation, the tribe of Dan was completely excluded from
Amazing.
the 144,000.
Wow.
And the tribe of Joseph got a double portion between Manasseh and Ephraim, his two sons. They got 24,000, Joseph did, but 12,000 between each of those two sons to substitute for the absence of the tribe of Dan. Now, Christians looked at this, and before Christianity, Israel's sages looked at this, and they said, the Antichrist, the black one is what they called him, rather than the prince of darkness, would come from the tribe of Dan because of that prophecy in Genesis. So they knew there was a war between Yeshua, salvation, and the devil, the red dragon, portrayed around Dan from that prophecy. And it is actually depicted, portrayed on Prince Charles' coats of arms. Now, King Charles III's coats of arms. Charles is the Black Prince, heraldically, and I point this out from the symbols on his coat of arms. He has been, since he was invested Prince of Wales in July of 1969, been known as the Black Prince because he wears the badge of the Black Prince, who is the founding Prince of Wales of the Order of the Garter, the oldest and most prominent and most powerful order of chivalry knighthood in the world, founded in the 14th century.
Okay, he wears the badge where?
He wears it on one of his fingers, on one of his hands. He wears it. It's a gold signet ring that has the badge of the Black Prince on it, but that same badge, it's 3 ostrich feathers encircled by a coronet, which is supposed to be his crown as Prince of Wales, but encircled by a coronet known as the Black Prince. It's the Black Prince's badge. He wears it on a signet ring, but it's also in one of the compartments on his coat of arms. It's also a druidic awen. The 3 ostrich feathers are arranged to represent a druidic awen. So I talk about that. The awen symbol is a precursor to the mark of the beast. Historically, the design of the picket-shaped UPC and EAN barcodes is related to something called the Ogham alphabet of Druidry, and also to the Awen of Druidry and Neo-Druidry, both classical and Neo-Druidry. And I address this in my book on the mark of the beast, but all that ties in under Charles, and the central symbol of this Neo-Druidry is, and they're the Gorsed Druids, that's what they're called, is the red dragon, the same red dragon that's on Charles' coat of arms, the same one that represents Satan, the same one that Wales has adopted as their national symbol. It is the central symbol of Gorsed Druidry. And so they have the Awen and so forth, all tied into the mark of the beast. But at any rate, Charles
that's connected to the tribe of
Prince.
that's connected to the tribe of Dan.
It is, because Israel's ancient sages said that the black one would come from the tribe of Dan.
The tribe of Dan was cut off from the other 12 tribes of Israel. Why? Because they built a pagan altar. How crazy is that from the banished tribe that the Antichrist will emerge and turn the third temple altar in Jerusalem into a pagan altar? So the very thing that the tribe of Dan was cut off for doing is what the Antichrist from the tribe of Dan is going to do himself. Now, who's going to be right there when the Antichrist desecrates the temple? His army. In fact, his army is ready in position, but most people don't even see it. Click the video on the screen to learn more.